Before I even get into the topic of this video, let me just explain why you should care at all about this. New map. Battle map Eversleeping Town Small has been adjusted and will be available in quick matches and custom. We are hoping that the map will eventually be available in rank mode later. So all you top tier players out there, you guys better listen. This is gonna be a big change. We haven't gotten a new map in over a year. So the Eversleeping Town map has been updated for 1v4 exclusively. Now, what the point of this change is so that we can play it in a rank match, and it's actually a kiteable map where we could play on. So I'm going to go ahead and review this map. I've already looked at it. I think it's amazing, and let me just explain why. But first, we got to look at the map, show all you guys what's going on here. So the first place I'm going to show you guys is probably an area that's most similar to all of us, and that is the graveyard in this map, most similar to church. Now, I'm sure all of us, when we've played this map for the first time, we remember this map, how this was probably the most memorable part of this map, the graveyard. Let me just go over it, give you a little quick rundown. The tram is still here, but they've updated a few pallet locations on in this area. And first of all, just looking at it, you can see how these pallets have a striking resemblance to those in church, how there are these long walls, and if the hunter goes around, you can just go to another pallet. The church graveyard is definitely a nightmare for all hunters, so this is just off the bat good for survivors. You have to make sure not to corner yourself here when you use this pallet and the hunter breaks it. You're going to have to go around here and use this pallet afterwards. But there's even a window here, and this is something not even regular church has. You have to travel a little bit to a window. So off the bat, you can get a window boost. This is so far a really decent map for survivors, just this one area. As you guys can also see here, there's a Cipher right next to this window, so you can very easily, this is a very safe Cipher spot for all survivors. Alright, now moving out from this Cipher, let's go a little bit on the train tracks. Now, first thing you guys probably notice on the top of the screen, it says, watch out for nearby trams. Now, this way, the goal of this is so nobody ever dies to a tram again. But look at this pallet location right here. This is really good. You can mindlessly drop these pallets, and if the hunter goes around, you can just go around to another pallet. So let's say you just transitioned from graveyard, you just vaulted this window. You could drop this pallet. If the hunter tries to go around, you could just use this pallet, and then the hunter's forced to break a pallet. So right off the bat, super good pallets. By the way, this is a window. Not sure if any of you guys noticed, but that's a window. It's a really bad window. I don't see how anyone will ever use it. But right here we have another pallet location, and here's another Cipher spot as well. The pallets here at this Cipher aren't too great, but if you guys look right around the back of me, you'll see a structure that's very similar to Lakeside, the small little hut area on Lakeside where there's this single wall, there's a window in the middle. They took out a pallet, but this is still a super strong area, so you guys don't even have to use these pallets. These pallets aren't that great. Just transition to this pallet, and it'll be fine because this is a really good pallet spot. On top of that, if you get chaired here, you got a pallet right there, so nice chair spot for survivors. Looking at this pallet area, this one's crazy. Look at the size of these walls. If a hunter tries to go around, there's no chance. They have to break a pallet here. Let's say you drop this pallet, hunter tries to go around, you could just go over here, drop this pallet now. Or at that point, if they try to go around again, like, the hunter really can't do anything. You have to break one of these pallets, and this is basically why Arms Factory is such a nightmare for hunters. They're forced to break pallets. They can't just go around the pallets, and this is strikingly similar to Arms Factory so far. So let's move along. Look at this pallet area. This pallet area is sick. Another nightmare pallet for hunters. They have to break this one. They can't go around it. And as soon as they break it, survivor can just hop this window, get a speed boost. These pallets are alright. If you're an experienced survivor, you'll know to drop these pallets from whichever side the hunter's coming from. Make a little circle, and then use this pallet next. And then the hunter's forced to break the pallet again. So really, you just have to use this pallet smartly. It's not the best. It's not OP. You can't just mindlessly drop, but it's still decent. On top of this, there's a cipher location right here. Just vault this window, use this pallet. You don't even have to use this area. Moving right along these train tracks, there's another pallet right here. Don't use this. This might be contender for one of the worst pallets in the game, but right here is a really good pallet location. Now, you guys might be seeing a theme with this map already. This is just pallet heaven. There are a million pallets next to each other. That's Arms Factory in a nutshell. A million pallets next to each other. Drop this pallet. Drop this pallet. If the hunter tries to go around, vault this pallet. Go right over here. Get the pallet boost, transition away. Or you could just go over here. If they're breaking one of those pallets, go right down here, this hallway, and you could use this pallet area that I talked about earlier. That's super strong. One of the things that you guys might remember about Eversleeping Town is that it really lacked hiding areas, good ones, and all of them were really far away from each other. You'd have to travel all around these buildings. Now what the devs have done is that they've separated these buildings, so not only is it Priestess Heaven, it's really good for every other survivor as well for transitioning. Right over here, another cipher location that the gardener just completed. Take a look at these pallets. Yeah. I don't even think I need to explain this. Look at the size of these walls. You cannot go around these pallets. You have to break them. Go around this building. You don't even have to use the pallets. You can also go around this building. And you might be looking at this building and you're probably realizing it's not so bad. There's no pallet at the entrance, right? Psych, there's a window at the entrance. So this is a super good window spot as well. You can just vault that window, transition over here. If it's early game, nobody's used this pallet. This is a super good pallet. Vault this window for a speed boost. Honestly, there's so many unlimited routes you could take with this map, and that's probably what makes Arms Factory and Hospital so great, is that there's an unlimited amount of routes. Sure, some routes beat other routes, but for the most part, you can make a lot of routes work. Right outside this building, you guys will find a very forgiving pallet area once again. I think they made this map too forgiving for survivors, honestly. Look at this pallet spot. Drop the pallet, hunter has to go all the way around, and by the time you go around, the survivor is going to loop around this building, going to vault the window again. Even if you have window walls, they're just going to use the other window. And they're going to vault this pallet again, maybe even drop this one this time. And now you're forced to break one. This pallet area, solid transition area. You probably shouldn't stay here for too long because, as you can see, these walls are pretty short, so you can't mindlessly drop these pallets. You have to be careful of which side the hunter's coming from. But honestly, if you just use it effectively, and you just drop these pallets without getting hit, you can loop endlessly and vault them endlessly, as shown here, if I were a survivor. But let's go into the town for a second, and show you guys what it's like in the center. Have I actually shown you guys? I don't think I've shown you guys this part yet. So here's that cipher I was talking about earlier. If you don't want to use this area, if the hunter's coming from this side, you could just go to this pallet area right here where the dungeon is. Or you could also, if they're coming from over there, you could go over either here or here if you have the distance. Now this is a pretty solid pallet area. Once again, this one's not a mindless pallet drop area. You have to be careful from which side the hunter's coming from. And whichever side the hunter's coming from, just drop it in their face. If they try going around, go the opposite direction, loop back around, drop the other one that you have not dropped yet. Maybe even fool the hunter to think that you're going to vault the pallets, so you can make yourself even more distance. And here we have the second building of the map. There's only 2 buildings on this map you can enter. This one does not have a window. There is a cipher up here, though, so that's crazy OP. You guys know, any cipher inside a building is crazy OP. And right here, there is a window, so it's free. It's a free distance for the survivor. Vault the window, and there's a drop animation, unless there's spider. And what I suggest doing here is I suggest completely ignoring these pallets because these pallets suck. Go over here and you will find a second lakeside building. I swear, they took this straight out of Lakeside. What's so great about this one is you don't even have to use both of them like you do on Lakeside. You can drop one of these, move forward to this pallet location, and you could drop this pallet. And if they try to go around, use this pallet. It's so mindless. You don't even have to conserve your pallets. Don't use this pallet. This pallet sucks. I don't think I need to explain why. One of the things you have to be careful about in this map, as shown by this pallet right here, is even if a pallet is good, which this one's not, you have to be careful of cornering yourself, because as you guys can see, this map is still, they've maintained the openness of the tram. The tram area where it would drive by is still very open. It needs to be. So be careful not to corner yourself, because, for example, in the graveyard, you had to be careful not to corner yourself, because outside of that pallet area, there's really nothing else left. So you have to be smart about it. And if you're smart about it, this is a very strong map for survivors and a very scary map for hunters. So, as I've said, there's unlimited amount of kiting possibilities here. I'm gonna go over them, a couple theoretical ones, but just in general, it's super strong area. Now I'm gonna go over dungeon locations. This is dungeon location number 1. It doesn't show up right here, but there is a dungeon here that appears. On top of that, the tram actually stops here. So if you're riding the tram, and by the way, this is not a gate. That's not a gate. If you're riding the tram and you get off here, there's a 33% chance that a dungeon spawns here. Did I mention that there's only 3 dungeons on this map? As if this map wasn't good enough for survivors. Instead of 5 dungeons, there's 3 ciphers. All you OG survivors, you guys remember when Church first came out, or Lakeside first came out? Everyone was like kind of triggered that there were 5 dungeon locations instead of like the normal 3. Right here is the second dungeon location. It is very close to the first one, so it's just a walk away. And here's the third one. Right in this corner, which I showed you guys earlier, it is right here. So, not only is this map not that big anymore, but the dungeon locations are all pretty close to each other, so expect a lot of dungeon escapes on this map as well, as if this area of the map wasn't so great at kiting already. You can quite possibly, I can definitely see myself, for example, like let's say a hunter's chasing me and a dungeon location isn't here, I can definitely see myself kite from dungeon to dungeon to dungeon. Use this pallet, vault this window for a boost, go to this dungeon location. If there's no dungeon location here, I keep going, I drop these 2 pallets to block the hunter's path, get up this house, vault the window. You won't get a speed boost from that one, but honestly you should have plenty of distance to just walk over here. Actually, maybe not plenty, but if you have some sort of item, like any item, prospector magnet, a single enchantress stun, you'll be fine, you'll reach this pallet. You could also just, well actually, it depends. If a hunter breaks this pallet and they have slow pallet breaking, you can transition as well. It's a little bit far, but it's totally possible. And yeah, that's every area on this map, honestly. This is a really OP map. Now, I'm going to go over kiting spots, possible kite routes. Alright guys, post-editing Psyche here, and I just finished editing the clip you guys were watching, and I realize now, facecam plus mobile games don't really add up. It looks like I was looking at my crotch the whole time. So anyway, let's get into the cipher positions here on this map. I count there are 13 ciphers on this map. If I'm wrong, you guys can correct me in the comment section. But right here, next to these 2 pallets, is a cipher position. It's not here right now because there's a cipher next to me that spawns somewhere else. Here is cipher number 1. And you can see right here, there are 2 pallets in this area. So it's a very safe cipher location right here. You could do a lot with these pallets. You could just, as soon as you see the hunter from a far away distance, you could just drop one of these pallets right here. So like as shown right here, there's just a bunch of area where you could see the hunter from far. You could drop that pallet, you go in the back of this house or in this path right here and take these stairs. You could also just loop these pallets a couple times. So you don't even have to drop it right away. You could loop it right here, see which side the hunter's coming from. As soon as they come close, you could drop it. And I don't know, if you dropped the pallet from earlier, then you could get a vault from this one. You should, if you're gonna use the pallets next to this house, there are more pallets right here, then you need to go in the back of this house. And the reason for this is, if you try to go through this little path right there in the front next to the basement, and you try to drop the pallet from
from this backside right here, then what's gonna end up happening is the hunter's gonna break that pallet, and you see right here there's just a dead end here. There's a lot of distance between you and the next pallet, and the hunter's gonna cut you off. They're gonna try to cut you off at least, and they're probably gonna hit you. So instead, if you're gonna use this path, I recommend not using this path at all. Instead, you should just go up these stairs right here. These stairs are a lot better, and the reason for that is because there's a window right here. There's also a window right there. It's your preference which window you want to vault. You could vault whichever one you want, because if you vault the window nearest to you, then you could transition to this lakeside building over there. So, I'm going to call it the lakeside building from now on, since it's a copy and paste of the lakeside building. Right here, there's a second cipher right here. Once again, you could use these pallets, but I recommend going up the stairs, vaulting the window. It's a lot more efficient. Remember, if you do use these pallets and you've just used the pallet on that side, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. It's going to be a little bit troublesome for you. Like I said, hunter can cut you off. So be careful with those. Only use it from the right side. Anyway, right here is the third cipher location. It's a little bit more on the dangerous side because there's only one pallet next to it, and it's farther away from the building and the other pallets from earlier. So for this one, you're gonna have to be careful. See which side the hunter's coming from. Whichever side they get closest to, drop it on their face. And if they try to go around, go the opposite side. Try to make your way to these pallets, or even better, the house. But you're probably most likely not gonna have the distance to make it into the house. So you're gonna be forced to use the pallet, and that's where it gets a little bit troublesome. So you have to watch out. If the hunter does break the pallet, then that is Gucci for you, because now what you can do is you could either transition to this house if they broke it on like the opposite side, or go over here to these pallets showing right here. And these are really good pallets because of this fourth cipher right here. This fourth cipher may seem a little bit dangerous at first because there's nothing next to it, but if you look closely, there are really nice pallets on the left and right of it. So whichever side the hunter comes from, you could use both. If the hunter comes from, I believe, this right side, the left side, then you could use this pallet. I always recommend going in the pallet in the middle, so if the hunter comes from the left, you can go on the right, and if the hunter goes on the right, you can go on the left. And you see, you can kind of get into this loop with the hunter. So if you go to the middle pallet, then you have way more options. If the hunter's coming from that side of the map, though, you need to use this pallet. You could loop it, but I recommend just dropping it right away. Or if you want to get fancy, you could just loop it a couple times if you're confident in yourself. But if you drop it right away and the hunter tries to go around, you can make your way to this pallet, loop around, and just always stay the opposite direction of where the hunter is going. And then once the hunter breaks the pallet, you can make your way up these stairs. Now right here, I did not realize this. I was actually recording some violinist gameplay, and a survivor did this. They jumped off the ledge. I'm not going to jump off the ledge because it's really not a good idea. If you guys look down, there are no pallets down there. So if the hunter's close to you, you're just going to give the hunter free recovery when they land on the ground. And if they're far from you, then you're just going to enter this building, use this window right here, and this window's a lot safer, a lot better. You can transition to a lot more places. But right here is another cipher, a building cipher. As you guys know, all the ciphers in buildings are amazing. They are great because there are pallets or windows right next to them. As you guys see right here, not only is this a window, but it's a drop as well. So all hunters except spiders will be affected by this drop animation. So you have a lot of distance to cover. They have a lot of distance to cover, I should say. You could go to the graveyard, or you could go to that lakeside building, which I will show in just a moment. But as you guys can see, this is so far an amazing map. Some of these areas you do have to be smart with, but since I have 2 years of experience, I can kind of describe to you guys what this is going to look like before even having to kite. Right here is another cipher location. This is not a good pallet area right here because of how short these walls are. You're going to get into a mind game. You're going to get into like this mind game vault situation with the hunter, where the hunter's going to try to make you vault on the wrong side, but it's just not going to work, and they're going to hit you, and it's not going to end well. So if that happens, you should use either of these areas. You should use this area right here, or that lakeside building. Right here actually is another cipher location next to this window. But right here, like I said earlier, I always recommend going in the middle pallet, because the middle pallet will give you the most options going left or right. I do recommend that if you're going to decode on this cipher right here, you always drop this pallet right there, because that way, if you go in this middle pallet, now they can't cut you off. Now they have to break a pallet, or if they go on the right, you could very easily vault it, get a boost, get the heck out of here, go to that lakeside building. It's really good. Solid transition kiting area. And as soon as they break one pallet, that's your chance to get away. A lot of this map is really, really good pallets, but as soon as they break one pallet, you have to get out of there. If you stay, you're going to be in trouble. So always transition. Either way, a lot of hunters, it's better to transition against anyway, such as spider. Anyway, Here's another cipher location. As you guys can see, unless you get lucky and a tram spawns at the perfect moment when the hunter comes to you, then there's a lot of open space. You're not going to have a lot of options. The only option you'll have available is this window. And this window leads you to actually a very solid graveyard area of the map. This is the graveyard of the map, very similar to the church graveyard. A lot of good pallets. It's similarly designed. You do have to be careful of cornering yourself, though, because as you guys can see right here, this is a really solid pallet. But if you look behind me, there is nothing else left. There's this useless pallet, which I do not recommend using, because as soon as the hunter breaks it, or like you vault to the wrong side, they're going to hit you anyway, no matter what. So I recommend staying away from the pallet. Instead, once they break this pallet, you should go around and see which side the hunter is going to come from. Maybe loop it a couple times, all up to you, how confident you are. See which side the hunters come from, drop the pallet. As long as they have slow pallet breaking, which most hunters do because they run trump card, you're going to be fine here. So as soon as they break this one and that one, and like it's just every time they break a pallet, just transition away, because if you don't transition away, you're going to get hit. And right here, there's another cipher location right here in this graveyard, but because there's a cipher next to me on the outside, then it's not here. Like I said, same game plan here. You can use these pallets to the best of your ability. Really, you shouldn't be messing up too much here. The only time you will mess up is, I don't know, if you didn't react fast enough to when they broke a pallet, so you didn't have enough time to get away to the next pallet. And finally, right here in this graveyard, there's one last pallet. This pallet seems good on the surface because there's a wall between like you and this pallet, so the hunter's forced to break it. But the problem is, it's only good if you're exiting the graveyard. The reason for this is, you see right here how there's this basement is in the way. If there was a basement right here, the hunter can actually cut off that corner, and they don't even have to go around the wall at all. They could just go between that corner. It's a very inconsistent basement position because of like how it's luck dependent in that way. But if you see right here, if you're entering the graveyard and you use this pallet, you'll see around me there is really nowhere close, no nearby pallets. As soon as the hunter breaks the pallet and you go around this wall, the hunter's just going to cut you off, whether or not there's a basement there, and they're probably going to get a hit on you. You need some sort of boost or some sort of item, and like even then, it's really only efficient to use this pallet if you're exiting the graveyard, because if you're exiting, the hunter will have to be the one to go around the wall instead of you. And you'll be fine from there on because there's a pallet that I mentioned earlier there, and you should be good to go. Anyway, right here, there is another cipher location right next to the graveyard. It should be right here, but because the cipher's in the building, it is actually not here. I recommend not using these pallets at all. These pallets aren't very good. Just stay away from them. Instead, use this Lakeside building once again, copy and paste from Lakeside, except this time it has both of the pallets here. The other one only has one pallet from one side. So for this one, what you want to do is, you don't want to use both these pallets right away. Instead, drop one, see which side the hunter's coming from, and if they decide to break it, then you can go ahead, instead of using that pallet, go over here. And this is why it's going to be important why you don't use that second pallet. You can loop around this area. You see how these walls are very long, so even if you drop a pallet early, you don't even have to loop these, honestly. You can just drop them early, and there's no way a hunter can trick you to vault to the wrong side because there's just so much space between you and the hunter. This wall causes so much space, so it's going to be very hard for the hunter to hit you. Once you're done using this area, once they break a single pallet, this area is not going to be good anymore, so don't go over here. Instead, remember how I said not to use the second pallet? Now it's going to be useful because you can drop the second pallet in their way, and if they try to go around, you can use the window. If they try to break the pallet, there's actually a corridor next to the other cipher that I mentioned earlier, so if they decide to break that pallet, you can go down this corridor and go next to the house with the floor and jumping off the ledge. Basically, that's where you're going to go afterwards. I didn't show it right here, but I think you guys get the idea if you know this map well enough, that is. Right here, here's the next cipher. This cipher is a little bit sketchy because, unfortunately, this thief dropped pallets. But if the hunter's coming from that side of the building, the opposite side, then you could use this little shack area right here. And this is a great pallet spot because the hunter, no matter which side they come from, you'll have enough time to react. If they come from around, you just drop the pallet on the side they're coming from. Don't drop it too early, and then you could just boost away. Probably going to be a window boost. You guys see how there's a window right here? I recommend after you drop the pallet on that side, you should just use a window boost to get away. Ignore these two pallets, because what's going to happen here is if you use these pallets, then you might end up cornering yourself if the hunter already broke that pallet in the shed. So once you use that window boost, you can actually get away over here in this area. Now ignore this pallet. This pallet isn't that great. But right here, these are really good pallets. Now here's the next cipher position. Once again, it's not here, but because the other cipher is there. But normally it's here sometimes. And right here, you want to use these pallets. These pallets, you could loop them, you could drop them, you can do whatever because the size of these walls is immense. Basically, I would almost argue that Trump built this wall because how immensely large these walls are. It's like the opposite of circus. There are so many things you could do on here. You could loop these 2 pallets, you could loop all 3 pallets, you could drop all 3, and you could just vault, do whatever you want. Whatever the hunter does, you can counter it very easily. If they decide to actually break one of these pallets, you can go down this corridor, and from then on, you could just transition out of here into another area. And as you guys, you'll see right here, it's back to this area. So it all connects together. You can once again go in the middle pallet, gives you the most options. It all connects together. All these corridors help to make a super nice transition map. So whatever the hunter does, either way, you're going to be able to transition somewhere good. Here's actually an exit gate. This is one of the best exit gates in the entire game because you see right here, there are 2 pallets right here. I recommend before you start opening the gate, drop that pallet, and if the hunter teleports to you, drop this one as well. And now the hunter is either forced to break it, or if they go around, then you could go the opposite direction of where they're going. If they're coming from the left, you can go to that building over there next to that cipher, or if they're coming from the right, as shown right here, you can go to these pallets and do the same method that I said earlier. Drop the pallets, loop them. You should probably be dropping them if the hunter has detention just to be safe. And it's late game anyway, so it doesn't matter conserving pallets. But yeah, this is overall a really, really nice map. I'm just going over here, making sure I didn't miss any ciphers. I believe those were all 13 ciphers. But yeah, this is a really nice map. You just have to be careful of transitioning, knowing your routes, and once you know the routes, you could branch out from a lot of ways from there. Just know the good places, and as soon as you know the good places, you could use this windows right here to even there's so many things that I didn't mention here that you could do. One thing I forgot to mention here is what if the hunter is coming from the shack side, so from this side. So what you're going to want to do here is you're going to have to drop the pallet closest to the ciphers. So not this one, but the other one. This one right, not the one that it's hard for me to explain when I'm commenting this after I recorded it, but this pallet right here, drop this ahead of time and leave this one open. Unfortunately, the thief dropped it, but this way if the hunter comes to you, you can actually go around, drop that pallet that you did not drop, and now there's a wall between you and the hunter, and there's very little the hunter can do at that point. So he's kind of screwed from there. They have to, if they're going to go around, you're just going to keep vaulting it, and as soon as they break one, you can just transition out of here. So really, it's only good if you drop this first pallet right here. If you don't drop the first pallet, then what ends up happening is this wall is very short, so the hunter can very easily go around, and they're probably going to hit you, because as you guys can see, the wall in the middle is a lot shorter than the walls on the outside, meaning that the hunter can easily hit you, and you won't really have enough time to react and go around before getting hit. So this is, by the way, that's not a gate. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. That's not a gate, but really, this is a really nice map. Like I said earlier, you just have to know where to transition. The tram actually here, there's 5 tram positions, I believe. The tram stops in 5 different places, I think. 2 of them are at dungeons, and then the other 2 are at exit gates. So the tram really connects this whole map together. Anyway, I'm really glad this map is coming to the game. It's a really nice map. But anyway, guys, this has been Psyche. Peace.